Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. And today I just want to talk to you guys about the problem of evaluating your experts, people you get advice from based purely upon their appearance or their results. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. The problem that we get into when we're talking about anything from bodybuilding to powerlifting and just building muscle or aesthetics or whatever in general, we base it so much on appearance. And it's reasonable why we do so. Because we see the people and go, well, clearly they got the results, so they know what they're doing. If I can find out what they did, I will get those results. The problem is that oftentimes they're genetic outliners and or they're on drugs that you may not be willing to use to get those results. Or in some cases, they just bust their ass and have decent genetics and work so hard, inhumanly hard, that they get results despite not really knowing what they are doing, just through sheer tenacity and work ethic that the vast majority of people will never develop. So oftentimes this doesn't work. And I'll give you some examples real quick of two extremes. I'll give you extreme examples to show you why this doesn't always work. For example, take Jay Cutler. People would assume that Jay Cutler would be the pinnacle of knowledge on bodybuilding. But when you go look at him as a teenager, wow. Just wow. The guy was a monster. He probably wasn't on gear yet in his teens in some of those pictures, but you would think he was on grams and grams of steroids. He was huge. And so you take a guy like that and you have any trainer or coach put him on even a basic program and he goes on a bit of drugs, and you're very quickly going to have a professional bodybuilder physique. You're going to end up with a physique on somebody like that you or I and most other people will simply not be able to obtain no matter what we do. And oftentimes he hired prep coaches and he had to have people tell him what to eat, how to train, which is normal in the industry. So using his advice may not always work for you. Or, for example, I knew a guy who never lifted weights in his life. It was at a contract job I had when I was younger, and his nickname was Tiny. He was about 6'2", a little over 300 pounds. He was probably 25 or 30% body fat. But he had about 21-inch arms, and he was close to 40 years old. And I watched him one day while sitting down, reach down and pick up a industrial engine cylinder head that weighed about 400 pounds. He stood up with it and picked it up and set it on a shelf like this. Just set it up on a shelf. And I knew the weight on that thing. It was around 400 pounds. And then he walked over and did it again and did another one, just like he wasn't even straining. And I asked him one day, and he had said he had never lifted weights in his life. He had just been doing this job, lifting cylinder heads and moving heavy wrenches and stuff for 15 years. And then when he got home, he worked on his little ranch that he owned, and he built fences and baled hay and stacked hay and drove T-posts. But if you had looked at the guy, if he had just gone on a cutting diet and continued doing what he was doing and say dropped down to 220 pounds, the guy would have been a 220 pound bodybuilder with 18-inch arms and abs and everything. He would look like a bodybuilder. He was just huge from years and years of the manual labor. But he didn't know anything about training. He'd never touched a weight. He'd never tracked his food. So you take individuals such as those and you see the problem there. And by that same token, you could take someone who you look at him and go, he doesn't look that impressive. He's an older guy. Doesn't even look like he lifts at all. But then you find out that he graduated with honors with a master's degree in sports science and minored in nutritional science, was an NFL strength and conditioning coach for a decade, and now trains competitive bodybuilders for contest prep. So you might see someone like that and take that for granted. So what you need to look at is where people have been, what are they saying, and sometimes look at how far they've come. Because what you oftentimes see is that sometimes the people who are the most genetically gifted don't always have to work as hard to achieve some of their goals. And the question I've seen it phrased is, would you rather take someone who naturally could jump with a 5-foot vertical leap before he ever started training for it, and he eventually got up to an 8-foot vertical leap with 2 years of training? Or would you rather take someone who could only vertical leap about 2 feet or 1 foot, who read every book and strategy that he could possibly find on increasing his vertical leap, got his own vertical leap up to 6 feet, which is 2 feet less than this other guy, and had been training other people for the past 5 years to improve their vertical leap and produced all sorts of champions by training them? Now, those are extreme examples, and the latter one was a little silly, but I'll give you guys a perfect example of somebody I know, and I've seen him online be told that he doesn't know what he's talking about because he's not that impressive. People make fun of him. And that's Alan Aragon. But a lot of people are not aware that, one, he has a master's degree in nutritional science. He's been peer reviewed, and he trains everyone from professional athletes like NFL players, some WWE wrestlers, at least one he is the personal nutritionist for, and he currently trains several top-rated pro natural bodybuilders as their nutritionist and their trainer. So if all of these top-level competitors and people are hiring him and they're getting results and winning, it's pretty reasonable to think that he knows what he's talking about. Yet I've seen people dismiss him because they go, well, he barely looks like he lifts, he doesn't look like a bodybuilder. But he probably knows more than most of us on a lot of these topics. So that's something you guys need to look at. Don't always assume. Now, sometimes you can use someone as a starting point if they're getting great results. Yeah, sure, go ahead and listen to what they have to say. Absolutely. But learn to evaluate what people are saying. Look at the information they're putting out and ask, does it sound reasonable? Is this reasonable, or does it sound like bullshit? And maybe go do a little bit of your own research. Don't sit around waiting on people like me or other people on YouTube or other experts to just spoon feed you information and just accept it as fact. Because we could all be wrong. And you don't really know that we're always right on those points. So go do a bit of your own research, your own reading, and I don't necessarily mean from magazines or forums, but go read real books written by experts who are the best in their field and see how much of the information overlaps. Just go do some fact checking on some of the stuff that people say and do your own research. Don't just assume that because we sound like we know what we're talking about, that we always do, because we could be wrong. And even me, I am wrong sometimes. And very often the people who get the amazing results, these genetic outliners who go on the best drugs, or maybe they're even natural and they still look just fantastic due to their genetics, maybe they have a lot of stuff wrong, and some of the information that they're giving you might not be good information. So always do a little research on your own, do a little reading, a little digging, look and see if what people say sounds reasonable to you. Does it make sense? Is it reasonable? And if you try something for yourself that someone is suggesting and it doesn't work the way that they said it should, then maybe you should try something different at that point. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time.